Good morning. Again, welcome to House General and Housing. We're still addressing H772, which is rental reform, rental landlord tenant, residential rental agreements. We have, just for the general public, we have at this point had a series of walkthroughs from council. And at the moment, council is just producing the next quasi-final, I would say, draft. And I think at this point, I would very much like to hear from people in terms of how they're feeling about this bill, et cetera. At this point, all I'm going to say myself at this point is I'm going to repeat that I feel like we are operating in a very imperfect world on this bill. And it's because we're operating in a world in which vacancy is very tight. It's very hard to find housing. We don't have a social safety net. Landlords are being asked to perform functions that in other countries social agencies perform. And tenants who are perfectly good tenants but run out of money find themselves at risk of homelessness or living out of their car. The state is having to pay increasing amounts of money, much greater than anything else, to deal with homelessness. It's just I'm acknowledging that we are operating in a very difficult environment in which housing is important. And at the same time, people who provide those housing, landlords, need to know that they have a stable, viable situation in which to operate. I think the question to ask yourself as you're looking at this, is this an improvement or not compared to the status quo? And, is it or isn't it? And at that point, I'm going to shut up and open it up for discussion. Debbie.
I just have a question on this show cause. So the landlord's going to bring a lease violation, let's just say. And we're in court, we're showing the lease violation. And let's say the judge is like, the tenant brings their side of it. And the judge's like, not enough evidence for this. How many times in a time period can a landlord bring forth a show cause?
Here's my understanding, and I think that when counsel gets back here, we can ask him, okay? But my understanding is this. The show cause hearing is a subset of all of this. In other words, the show cause hearing is just about a tenant who's violent or is making life unsafe or dangerous for other tenants or the landlord. That's all the show causes. So,
but the Zoom appears to be not on.
oh,
Sadia is asking how. Yeah.
let's stop for a moment.
We're live, it's that Sadia can't.
Right,
Zoom in.
so is the Zoom, we're holding off because the Zoom isn't functioning and there somebody, at least one person who wants to Zoom in. Do you have any idea what's going on here? Just, is it, Elizabeth, did Sadia text you?
Yep.
That she couldn't get in or that she was trying and
She texted me to say, when are we back? The Zoom link has stopped.
to ask her to try again?
If someone can't get on Zoom, can they call? Can they be on a phone?
We could do that if we could do that. What I'm gonna do is, while she's trying to get in, is just respond to Debbie's question, which will take me a minute. Debbie. If the landlord is bringing a case because of, let's say, non-payment of rent, for example, okay? They're not a dangerous tenant. They're just, it's non-payment of rent or it's some other violation of, hey, Saudi, are you in?
Yeah, I don't know what that was. That was weird. I couldn't get in the thing, but thank you.
It's all because of your politics.
Right?
Okay, so Debbie, to answer your question, if a landlord is facing a situation with, non-payment, some other violation of the lease, if it's not a violent tenant, not dangerous, in that case, life is pretty much the same as it was before, except faster. So there's one hearing, if you could go the filing rent into, or, paying rent into court, and if they don't do that, they're out. Same rules, everything, that's the same. Or you could just skip that and go through the hearing process. This is assuming if they default, same rule. It's a little quicker to get the judgment under this law. And if they contest it and they want a hearing, now the hearing has to be faster. So that's where that is. If they are a dangerous tenant, only if they are a tenant who is threatening the health or safety of other tenants, the landlord or the landlord's agent, then you have an option. It's an option of the landlord to file at the same time as you file an ejectment action. You file an affidavit that says this person, it just sets out in your sworn affidavit. You're saying, I'm the landlord and here's the information I have that leads me to believe that this person is a danger to other tenants, blah, 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 blah. At that point, you have the right to request a hearing within 7 days, which is really fast. And in that hearing, either A, the tenant doesn't show up, in which case you get possession, or B, they show up. If they have nothing, the judge listens to them. The judge, let's say, decides, I'm sorry, I don't think that to the tenant, you have not carried the burden, then you get possession. Let's say the judge says, well, I think that there really are disputed facts here. They've introduced evidence that why there's a pile of needles outside of the front of their door. I don't know. Whatever they have some good reason. The judge has to set a hearing, but the hearing has to be set within 30 days. The whole thing is faster, and then it's done. At the hearing, the judge decides. Does that help?
It helps. So in here we have, if we have to repeat non-payment of rent,
Right.
and we're repeating that. Can we do the same thing with lease violation? Because they might be violating the lease, then they remedy it, and then they violate it. Yeah, 3 times in 12 months.
I mean, theoretically, let's play this out. Non-payment of rent is a special case because I think it's fairly easy for someone to scrape around, and not fairly easy, but it's possible that someone scrapes around and pays the rent, but we really wanted to deal with the habitual thing.
Right, habitual and egregious.
Egregious, yeah. But if someone's violating a term of the lease and you move to eject them, let's say they smoke, okay, in the building. Is that a good example?
Yeah, we have no smoking.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's use that because it's actually, a lot of landlords feel pretty strongly about that. So let's say you see that they're smoking. You move to eject them. you know, you go through, hey, stop smoking, they don't, you move to eject them. Then let's say they stop smoking for a while. I don't think you would stop the ejectment action, and there's no requirements. There's no requirement that you stop the ejection action. You could just move forward. And if they say, well, Your Honor, I'm not smoking anymore, you can say, well, you know, they violated the lease and they're out. See, the problem is with non-payment of rent is special because the law provides, gives people the ability to pay rent and cure. It doesn't give them the ability to cure for other violations. So you just keep going. I wouldn't abandon the process. You know, if they're smoking again during, you have one eviction, just, they violated the lease.
So they can't remedy a lease.
They can't
violation.
remedy it, at least, I don't think you can remedy, you can get out of a case by just remedying a lease violation unless it's some, I don't know what else it would be, what other,
Like if
Well,
you
let's say they don't
take
have
out the
fuel.
door and.
What?
you
They
wanna
don't
open-
have fuel in the tank and it's winter time and it's like, you have to have heat in the building, it's in
Right.
the lease that you have to have fuel. You know, and then they get fuel and they put it in, but they've already violated that,
right.
the lease.
I think that's an evidentiary matter. I think that the trial court, I think you could maintain the action and say, it's really dangerous. This is something that happened, and I don't want to wait until they do it again, Your Honor, you know, and I mean, they might have to say, well, I let it go once, but now I have, you know, there would have to be a factual determination by the court, I think. I'm not saying that we couldn't add something. I'm just saying, I'm not sure what it would be, but the reason that rent is a special case is because the law expressly gives them the right to cure it. And what we, counsel and I, as we were going over drafts, realized that the existing law wasn't very clear about what happens in that situation, the repeated problem. And I didn't like that from the tenant's perspective because it would discourage a landlord from accepting rent. In other words, the testimony we've received is most landlords want a tenant who's a good tenant and is paying rent. Why would they want to eject them? So I think in most situations, if somebody's, let's say, 12 days late, I think most landlords are going to want to say, and then they pay. You know, a landlord may want to let that go. But the problem is then that if it happens again and again, there has to be a remedy. Discussion, other thoughts? I mean, let's keep going. Yes.
I have a question. Did we take any testimony at all on the positive rental payment? Did I miss that? Because I know last year, and I'm not saying I'm either for it or against it. I know that last year it was in S-127. We took it out because we just didn't have time to take testimony. But we liked the idea of having the conversation this year. And now it's in this bill, and I'm just not sure if we actually took
I'm not sure.
any
I don't know.
testimony on
I
it.
don't remember.
Was it through VHFA or through CVOU?
Neither. It's through the treasurer's department. I
I can't remember, honestly. I don't know the answer.
I don't think we did.
don't think we did. I guess I'm just a little bit concerned about having an entire section in a bill that we haven't taken any testimony on.
Or that we don't remember. We might.
I'm
How do we even know about it?
I'm pretty positive we haven't.
So how did we end up in the bill?
I put it in the first draft because we had it before.
And then when we were looking, I'm just like realizing now when we were looking at all the timelines and like all the things that were different, I just don't think this ever came up.
Chris, do you remember whether you heard, either you or any testimony you heard?
Yes, it's valid, but the check has just, I have not heard testimony this year. I have been participated in testimony the last 2 years on this program. as it's trying to get up off the ground.
In
I
the
can tell you
Senate,
that we
right?
operate a similar program that they want to pilot, and we've seen great results with our tenants and increasing their credit scores by positively reporting rental payments to credit agencies. I just pulled up some data. I'm happy to share that with the committee if they want in terms of how our tenants have done. But that's,
I think that would be good. Go ahead and share it. Joe?
27, section 7, line 12.
I mean, to be fair, if any credit reporting agency that only reports positive things is gonna improve people's credit. If they only reported positively about every payment I made, I have perfect credit.
going to go to the check.
Yeah, you should. Then Debbie, I'll get to you.
Sorry, I don't know this.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, I will
No,
say.
there it just was discussed. We'll
Yes.
go on.
To answer that question, when people fail to pay rent, they get dropped out of the program,
Not sorted.
but no, it's not reported. Typically, rent does not get reported to any agencies anywhere. You know, unless property owners or landlords are proactively doing that. And so we've felt like it's a way for boost some people's ability to access credit and plan for the future. So I can say that, let's see, let me just look at this. Yeah,
And if they're dropped out of the program, then what would show up on a credit report is a few months of payment of rent and
and
then,
then nothing.
right?
Yeah, and my guess, my assumption, I don't have the data on this, but something else is going on in their life that's going to be impacting their credit case. But we've seen people's credit increase, or credit scores increase by an average of 26 points after they enroll.
Do people are there a lot of dropouts?
Let's see, we have prepared to find all this. I don't have that right handy here. Or I don't have that on the sheet. I can tell you that 521 of our tenants became visible by the credit agencies for the first time by enrolling in the program. They had no credit score at all, because they had not accessed credit.
Is that because they don't have credit cards, don't borrow any? And
A lot of people have no credit.
It could be that, or it could be that they're just newly moved to the country.
I didn't
in
have,
recent years.
I didn't have credit for a bit and then I got like one of those starter cards and like paid a utility. It's very common.
So it's a pilot program. It's something that the treasurer has talked about wanting to do. I think it's just another tool for low income people to build their.
I will say one thing about it, just process wise, it got kind of lost is what happened.
Yeah.
It went to the Senate.
It came from F 127.
Yeah, and then they weren't gonna put it in and somewhat, there was, I heard testimony, there was some concern, Joe, that the issue you raised was a concern. And then it was determined that people who didn't pay were just dropped. And that was enough so that it was in the Senate bill, but somehow it didn't make it. It kind of got lost.
We took it out
Yeah.
and thought that we were gonna talk about it this year and it just got put in. I actually, I have maybe a question for you. So a landlord has to opt into it.
Right.
Is that, if a landlord opts into it, is that for all of his unit or their units? Or is it just, so if they have, say it's a larger landlord who wants to be part of this program and there are requirements that we don't know of yet. Could they choose, I want this conglomerate of units to be a part of this program, but I have another conglomerate of units in a different town that I don't want. Does it have to be all?
Does not have to be.
Okay.
No, and in fact, I think if I recall the language correctly, in the treasurer pilot, they need the participating tenant to opt in.
Yeah, okay.
In our program, we let tenants opt out, and opt people in, and people can opt out if they want to.
I'm for keeping it and making sure that they get more testimony.
We have now had a little test.
Yeah.
That counts, count it.
Well, actually.
I just don't think that's
seriously,
good legislating, but
Yeah, I couldn't.
So do you
I
wanna
agree.
take it out?
I didn't say that. I wanted to
wasn't
understand.
asking.
Well, I think if we had brought it up earlier and we had denied the right to get testimony on it, that would be terrible legislating, but I think the fact that it's an honest timing.
I'm flagging it for the future that if we have something in a bill, we need to take testimony on everything that's in the
Right,
bill.
I
We
agree.
can't just
And I
completely
agree.
leave out a section.
Yeah, I
and
agree, but I'm just saying that the timing to call testimony is
I also
something
think. Right.
as helpful as this measure is. It's not the end of, I'm hoping that I'm really grateful that you're flagging it, and I really want to make sure that we follow through with.
I don't.
Flagging
think
that
this
for
is
the
end
next
because
step.
I think there is going to be follow-up legislation. Because we're going to have to see, this committee is going to have to take testimony. I don't know how many of you plan to be here next year, but you're going to have to take testimony on what has happened. You just don't, I've learned, you don't just fire and forget, because each one of us has fears about this bill, right? Honestly,
So we'll see the landscape later.
fears that it will play out this way for in some case or that case. And I think we're gonna have to find out if it's passed.
And it may not even look the way we presented it when it comes back to us.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about next year.
No, I know, but even just this
Oh,
year.
this year, that's true. Any other questions of Chris on this issue? I mean, I feel like we've had some testimony. Yes,
Just to raise the questions and not necessarily hash them up, but are there other agencies that do this to help build credit? Is this a unique thing or is this a common practice?
No, it's there are a handful well, the treasurer did a scan of the University of Vermont, and there are a number of landlords that use similar types of programs.
I think that, is it who operates the unit above the transit station? The units,
Downstreet?
Downstreet has a pilot program.
You do?
Yes,
We cover the cost of enrolling for our tenants because we think it's good for them.
Okay, and the second would be at some point, there should be testimony from the credit industry saying, is there, just people who use the report saying that's this. Are they still able to assess what they need to assess?
I think you're right.
Or are we flattening the bell curve?
Okay,
So I think that's a place for another committee going forward to make sure that gets
might be us.
followed up on. It might come back to us, but
Yeah.
be expeditious.
Yes,
You said you covered the cost to the tenant?
We cover the cost of enrolling. We don't pass on them.
So,
and this
So
pilot,
we work with and that may not be the case in the market.
Okay,
You need to have
sorry,
incentives.
it's right
for-
here. It says not to charge a participant tenant for participation. Okay. Thank you.
okay. What I would like to do, just to clarify, some of us are going down to, at 11:30, down to House Government Operations at their request to talk to them about the treasurer's,
So you're talking about it, not him specifically.
well, I think it's specifically to talk about 775 and the part of 775 that expands the treasurer's 10% to Vermont. I'm doing that at 11:30, which means I will be walking out of here and I might have company.
And then I'm in charge.
You are in charge at 11:25.
We're voting.
So what I'd like to do is have a discussion for 10 more minutes, questions, and then adjourn until and that will give council, I don't want to have, we're not going to vote until we have a draft to vote on,
A clean draft.
a clean draft. Also, I've corresponded with council. I just want to let you know.
Mhm.
Do you remember the part of the bill where this confidentiality part? And everybody, a number of people asked, well, look, the confidentiality disappears, not just when you win, but if there's a default, right? Right? Guess what? The language wasn't clear on that. So I signaled,
It's good.
I signaled,
That's it.
yeah, Cameron to please make it like we all understood it in that regard.
That was a good
So
flag
anyway, well,
catch.
I had helped.
I heard.
Yeah, so other comments or thoughts, questions, Debbie? And
I
then
know we've been over this a million times, and
there's not, never too much. Go on.
I'm still gonna go for the 3-day notice, because I'm gonna tell you, I would say so many are gonna be mailed. When you like to hand deliver, you set up a time, oh yeah, I'll be home at 4 o'clock. You go there at 4 o'clock, they're not there, oh, I got delayed, it's like, it's almost like a hassle. So it's like things are gonna get mailed, and that will bring us to 8 days. So 9th day, and if we're extending to 60
You're
days.
talking about
For
non-payment of rent, yeah.
Non-payment of rent. And if we're extending to 60 days to give time to negotiate, remedy the situation. I just feel like if we're looking at, how can we make this process faster for everyone involved, the landlords, to make it attractive for them to participate? That's my 2 cents on that.
So I have a question for you, Debbie.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm just asking, so. In the spirit of the bill, is this like a hard line for you?
It is.
Okay,
I want to say my view on this, my personal view. My personal view is I'm fine with 3 days. I don't think in the big picture of things it changes very much. I was a little ill at ease in going to 5 just because the post office, I don't really know what the future holds with post office. But I'm also fine with it for this reason. Most of the time, people who are in trouble, they're either not paying their rent or are causing violent, problems, or really problem tenants, they know that what's happening. I don't feel that the notice is a surprise to most of these tenants. I'm perfectly happy with 3 days, but it's up to the committee.
if that's where you need us to be to support the bill. And that's what you're stating, how do folks feel about that?
I would prefer 3 days.
3 days.
I'm fine with that.
Yes.
I live in a rural town where we don't ever get our mail within 3 days, ever get our mail within 3 days, because it has to go to another part of the state and then come back, even if it's in the same town. I think it's a slippery slope. And I also think that if it's 3 days for if a person, if I am to understand correctly, okay. Anyway, I think it's a very slippery slope.
But it's like, we have in here that you can email it and you follow it up by mailing it. So there's, with the 5-day mailing thing, it's like everything is backed up except for hand delivery, everything is backed up with the mailing. And so like, we can email you, like this is coming in the mail kind of thing. You might receive it, 20 days later because of your system. But I just feel like it's, you know, you're looking at 8 days before, or 9 days really, before anything can be started.
Regardless of when the mail arrives, you're saying.
Right.
Mary?
Mary,
Just as an example, in Montpelier, they get their mail once a week, sometimes on a Sunday. So, I mean, they have to consider that.
What happens what's the repercussion if the mail's late? Is there a way to know?
it's just shortening the time. In other words, I don't get it's just shortening the time.
And what is it now?
It's 3.
We have 14
Do we not
days
need
and
to
3
raise on
days.
the
Three now. It's 3 now. The point is, it's just a question of how much time, because we're adding a provision that says a rent isn't late until 10 days out. We're adding that. So we've given 10 days. And this 3 days is just on top of that. I mean, I don't get my mail in 3 days, and in fact, I don't get it in 5. So the reality is, what's really happening is it's 3 days plus 10 or 13 days.
That's
Or 5 days plus 10 or 15 days. Yes,
So is your concern that if they get an email and then they have to wait for the mail and it starts the clock again?
I don't think they have to wait for the mail.
I don't mean wait for the mail. That if they get an email and then they don't get their mail until 5 or 8 days, that you're concerned that that starts the clock again?
No, what it is we're giving them 5 days. We're giving the post office 5 days to get the mail to them. Right now, current law is 3 days. So if we do this is just for non-payment of rent, a termination notice. If we write it where it's 3 days plus 5 days for mailing, so that you're up to 8 days. I mean, you know, theoretically, on the 9th day, a landlord could start a process. Most likely, they'll start negotiation and go that route. But you know, you can we have a lot of different ways we can do this. We can email it, we can, but everything's followed up by, well, except for delivered by sheriff, and that could take a while in itself. But the only thing that's 100% is we hand deliver it. And I'm just saying that in the real world, doing it that way is probably not going to be a strong point, but by adding 5 days for mailing, the total picture, like if I wrote a termination notice out and I say, you know, I might even give an extra day if they didn't pay, you know, on the 1st, I'll wait till the 2nd, depending on the holidays and all that. You know, when I write that termination notice, the termination date will be 8 days, or 9 days, because we have to start counting the next day, not the day that we do it.
1 minute. Yeah.
So that would be how much time you would have.
I don't get my mail in 3 to 5 days either.
Well, but you're doing it as a backup. The mailing is a backup. I can email you the
So
notice.
Can I just ask, so who's uncomfortable with, are there people in the committee, you've expressed you're not comfortable with it, Elizabeth? Are there other people who are, Sadia, did you want to say something on that?
Uncomfortable with.
The piece, 3 day, so you're not comfortable with the 3 day, and is that a sticking point for you? Okay.
So we're talking about the time, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes,
I thought you was.
I want to make sure that I'm understanding. This is the time given for a response.
let's put it this way. You have to put this in context. It's not sitting alone. Okay, all right. Day 1, the rent is due.
Yep.
Day 2, they don't pay the rent. Okay. There's nothing to stop a landlord from saying your rent,
Was due
where's your
yesterday.
rent? But they can't send a notice of termination. Because for purposes of notice of termination, it's defined in the law now. This is what Debbie's saying. It's defined in the law that they have to wait 10 days after the rent is due. Okay?
Yeah.
So they wait, right?
I don't think that's how it is.
They can, you're saying,
In present law, you have 14 days. If I send a termination notice of termination, I have to count the 14 days, starting with the next day. And if I mail it, present law, I have to add 3 more days onto that. And that will be the date.
so now it's 13, now it's 15 days, or you would argue 13 days. You would want it to be 10 plus 3, not 10 plus
Well,
5.
I want it to be 3 plus 5.
You know what? I unfortunately can't wait anymore. You are in charge and we can talk on this, but I would ask as a courtesy that we not vote.
Obviously, we will not
Okay,
vote without
thank
you,
you.
Chair. Unless, good luck.
Let's see if you can clarify this and if council comes back.
So aren't
Do you
they,
have
no,
a
they're
copy
gonna
of
be
the
with
bill
you.
Yeah, council's meeting.
Yeah. Okay, we're not on a break. Yeah, council will be with you, sure. Okay. Oh, we're losing all 3 of them.
Okay, we started with.
Close the door or not?
We're good anyway.
Ugh.
I want to know why it's a stick.
No, yeah, Joshua, we're gonna get, okay, so right now, the committee has discussed probably our biggest sticking point at this point moving forward. And so, Sadia, would you like to discuss why that is your sticking point? Sadia, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Were you asking me why that is my sticking point?
Yes.
I think I stated this, many times, and it's just also been stated around when we're talking about mail and the reception or receiving of mail and technology or things like that. You're counting on external factors. If the weather doesn't get delivered, there's so many things that can happen, and at the fact that we're talking about 3, like, I just want to just point out a fact for a minute. Yeah, we're talking about 10 days, 14 days, 3 days, 3 plus 5, 3 plus 8. Like, for me, I'm sorry, but that just seems like a trivial conversation to be having in the gravity of what we're talking about. And when we're talking about landlords who, like, trying to get them what they need, ultimately the goal should be to get you the outcome that you want with the least amount of impact and harm, so that, like, you're not getting damage to your property, people are getting out, and you're getting as much money as you can back in the shortest amount of time. Meaning that people aren't staying in the property for years on end without paying rent. And I think if we're talking about, or months on end, we're trying to get the process to be within 6 months, reasonable. We're talking about humans here that have work, lives, etc. Mail, external factors, technology, power outages, internet connection. There's so many external factors. So I think talking about 3 days versus 14 days versus 10 days versus 3 plus 5 versus 8 plus 5, like, it's silly to me. And I think what the 14 days was fine. I think that stands. I said that before, and that's why it's a sticker for me, because in the grand scheme of things, this should not be this lengthy of a conversation for the gravity of what we're talking about and the subject matter at hand.
No, I understand, but for one of the committee members, it was something that was important to talk about and was their sticking point. So I was giving space.
That's fine. That's fine. Which I heard, but I just feel like we should be trying to figure out how, and full disclosure, honestly, this conversation, we've been talking about actors. We've been talking about bad actors this, bad actors that. The whole conversation of this change we were supposed to be talking about rental agreements, contracts, notifications, and disclosures. And it became all of these different factors factoring in. And honestly, what we should have done as a policy decision was made landlord tenant laws become consumer rights, and have, if someone wants to engage in the business of being a landlord and running a business and charging people money, then put it under business status so that they have more protection, so that they have the same legal rights as a business owner, as an employee, and those things are there and work. But we're not doing that because, one, we don't want to give more restrictions to landlord. We want to make it as flexible as possible for them. And also, we don't want to give any protections to tenants because, they don't own anything. So at the end of the day, they sign a contract. But I feel like if we're talking about contracts and negotiations and things, there should be consumer protections. There should be things involved. We have laws and regulations. We're talking about the laws and regulations that are currently in place, and we're talking about changing them, but we're not talking about changing them in a way that would benefit most people, is what I'm saying. Like, we if the current is not working at the dates that are there, shortening those days, what impact would that make? What is the difference? If it's not working at 14 days, how is it magically going to all of a sudden work at 3? That's
Okay.
I'm trying to understand that.
Thank you. Debbie, do you have another thought? And then I'd like to move on.
Yeah, no, I just want to respond that we had memo, I'm gonna call it, or testimony, if you wanna call it, from NECA, Northeast Kingdom Community Action, that they can give a response in 48 hours if they can help with rent.
Yeah.
And churches is another resource. And there's other organizations out there for resources that give fast notice on what they can do.
Okay, well, it sounds like this particular piece of the bill is a sticking point for several members of the committee. And, we have to make a decision on this as a group so that we can vote after lunch. So people need to think about what that means for them as we vote. Are there other points of discussion that folks have before we see the next draft with those changes and then plan to vote around 1:00? Elizabeth?
Can we go back up to the part where we talk about so-called dangerous tenants and the affidavit?
What page is that?
I don't know, the show cause section.
Okay. Yep.
First of
Both
all,
have that.
No, what page are you on?
excuse me.
Page 17 and 18?
I think 8, 20.
There's a lot of pages. We're all looking at today's draft, right? Draft 1.1.
That's not it.
2.1.
2.1.
Oh, yeah.
I see page.
Page 20 is a show cause hearing.
Okay,
Are you talking about the hearing?
Elizabeth, do you have it?
I have page 20. I was not talking about a specific language in the bill. I was actually, I wanted to back up to the domestic violence protection, but also
Okay.
in here. And first I want to say, I want to like on the record, thank Sadia for her comments earlier today about her experience. And in light of that, I wonder whether in a show cause scenario where a landlord signs a sworn affidavit about violence from on being perpetrated by a tenant, what if it is a mistake? What if it is a scenario in which a tenant is not actually the cause? The person on the lease is not actually the cause. It is somebody else. It's not, but the tenant is the person who is named on or the lessor or lessee is the person named on a police report.
Right.
Is 7 days really enough time for a tenant who's in that situation, facing immediate eviction? Is that really enough time for a tenant to be able to reasonably prove that they didn't do what they're being accused of by the landlord
So I think we talked
with a
about,
full-time job?
yeah, I think we did talk about this yesterday, right? Yeah, I think we did. Well, first off, I also want to thank Sadia for her experience, sharing her experience, and I have received language from the network and have sent it to Cameron for us to look at when he comes back about survivors, and it may address some of the victims, and if who's this or that. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't interpret it the way that he can. But I think we did talk about that. All the days are blurring. Was it yesterday or the day before about what would happen and how someone would go about dealing with that if that happened? But I might be mistaken. It's my recollection we did talk about that. But are you making a suggestion or just like raising that as an issue with the bill? Or is there a suggestion that you can make that would change that, or?
I am saying that is problematic to me.
The
We're
land.
talking about what sections are problematic. I'm flagging it as a problem.
Right. Are there other points of discussion about the bill before we go at one? Yes,
I just wanted to clarify what Elizabeth is talking about, sure, if I understand it. Are you saying that the person on the lease is the abuser?
No, I'm saying that the opposite, that the person on the lease is not the abuser. And a neighbor hears of a commotion
Right.
and calls the police.
Right,
The police blame the leaseholder
right.
and
the one that's getting abused. They're blaming, the police are blaming the victim.
yep, and then very suddenly, within 7 days, the victim is potentially out on their ear.
Right, well, I mean, I don't know the situation when they have the wrong person.
Yeah, I think that was a judiciary discussion. And that there was language in here about trespassing, and that had to do, again, we can flag it to ask Cameron if you'd like. There was, I believe, part of the judiciary section dealt with that situation.
Well, I'm not necessarily talking about someone for whom there is a order against them or no trespass order, anything necessarily like that. I'm just talking about, when we, I'm just talking about protecting tenants from losing their homes in, an inadvertent ejection
Yeah.
when it's not necessarily fair.
Yeah, and we were also saying that that's stickier if they're on the lease versus not on the lease, that we did discuss that. And as mentioned, there will be language coming forward about domestic violence and sexual survivor coming forward, when we get back. Yes,
I just wanted to refer to page 5. Line 2, when we're talking about return to security deposit.
yeah,
I believe present law is that the landlord shall return along with a written statement.
yeah,
It has to be mailed. You have 14 days to mail it.
deductions to the tenant
And
within
this just
14
says
days.
14 days after the date.
Well, the current law is whatever you see written there that's not underlined.
Right,
So what's underlined is after. That's
Right.
new.
Well, I'm just wondering if we need to clarify. Since there's a problem with the mail,
oh, I see what you're saying.
it's like,
Statement
if we
and
just
deductions.
clarify it and say that the landlord. If we put mailed by or mailed 14 day or however it's said.
I think that would be, I think it's stated, but if you'd like to ask Cameron for language clarity, that's fine. I don't see a problem with it personally, but if you wanna, it looks like you have a checklist going.
No, I don't, no, it's just.
Okay,
think the same
I came
process.
across that before.
so
and
do you
it's
think
like-
it looks good? You're good at this stuff?
Because when we rented
Yeah,
last year, I go, they have 14 days to get that to us. So of course, when we got the envelope, I looked at the mailing date.
yeah,
We
right.
didn't receive it 14 days.
I did.
You received yours, or you lived closer.
Yeah,
I
no,
didn't
sometimes
receive mine
it's
in
right.
14
Some
days.
people look at what the dates send and postmarked versus.
Yeah, I have them hand stamped.
Yeah, Elizabeth?
So should we then also make that the same case for renters? That they are, if the rent is mailed within a timeframe?
I don't think we're changing it. And but we can ask Cameron if it's not reading properly,
Right, yeah.
but I don't think that we're changing the policy. We're just asking if it reads right. Okay. And you wrote that down to ask. You got it in your little thingy. Okay. Gail, is your hand up?
Yeah.
Just the thinking hand.
Yeah,
Also,
counting.
side note, why is Mark's chair more comfortable than mine?
He sits in
Settings.
it more often, maybe.
Oh.
That's fire.
That's good. But it really, I mean, it's like, it has an extra,
Why?
no, I think it has an extra cushion. Anyway, but I couldn't get over, because I was trying to be closer to Leonore, it's like. But, and then I was like, noticing, anyway, all right, well, Joe, did you have anything you wanted to add before we go back?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Appreciate the offer though.
No problem. All right, well, we're still live and we can go off, but I just wanted to, I know this is really difficult work. This has been one of the hardest for me. At least, this has been one of the hardest bills that I've worked on since I've been in my time in the legislature. And it's something that my background, not that I'm not gonna pontificate here, but for folks who don't know, I actually have a background in tenants' rights work. And I worked on a lot of work for tenants in different communities for a long time. And then after chairing the landlord tenant study committee, anyway, this has been work that I've been in Grosston for several years, and so I know how difficult it's been, and I'm really proud of, I'll save it more for when we vote, but I'm really proud of the discussion, and this is the type of bill that not everyone is gonna like every piece, and it still has a long journey through the legislative process. So, I don't want people to feel like this is the end, but with that, committee, 3 of our members are in government operations with legislative counsel, Cameron, because we have our tracker on him now.
Mhm.
Mark left his phone. So I guess we'll take a break for lunch early, but when we come back, at 1, we'll have everyone back here and be prepared to vote, and if there's,
So are we done with discussions of whether we have any other problems in the bill?
no. If there's things you'd like to talk about, you're welcome to share them. But Cameron's not here, and we have half our committees kind of left, so I didn't know if you wanted to do that now, or it looked like people are trying to leave and take a break.
I guess so at 1, will there be another opportunity to talk about other questions about the bill, or are we just gonna go straight to voting it?
I mean, I'm not gonna be the chair at that point, but if I was, I would ask folks who have, I mean, are these things that in the bill that you, well, when you're advocating for, like, do you have things that can change that haven't been discussed already, or?
Yep.
Okay. So then, yeah, we would talk about it, I assume. I just, we've been working on this bill. I'm not trying to rush people, but we've been working on it for a while. And due to the legislature, it still has to go to 2 other committees. So if there's, I guess what I'm trying to say is there language suggestions that you would make to put into the bill or to change?
Because we can give those to Cameron.
Right, so
before.
that's what I'm saying, that's what I did. So I had an issue with the bill, so I got language to give him before the draft.
Then we can vote on that language. 'Cause
Right.
I think it's getting to the point where it'd be hard to create new language.
Right.
Have discussion on that new like assign the call for new language, discussion around the new language. And then also get the bill out in time. So I think I'm feeling like that's why I was making a big deal out of like the fees, for instance, and yeah, what is like is it okay to talk the issues out, right? Or at least raise them? We are
Yeah,
here,
we're
we
here.
started with quorum, we have
have
the
a quorum.
ability.
Yeah,
So it would be just an issue of figuring out whether
but if
it's
there's
an easy
change,
change
right,
or
if there's,
a hard change.
right. If there's changes that need to be made, then they have to go to legislative council.
Yeah. 2 issues. One is, I feel strongly that the landlord be required to provide alternative accommodations if the tenant if the tenant is living in an unsafe scenario that has to do with the dwelling. As I said yesterday, that I don't think that it is where we have in the bill a list of reasons to be able to withhold rent. I don't feel that's adequate, because if a tenant is living in a dwelling where they're living with the danger of being electrocuted, I think that's one of them. The landlord should be required to provide alternative accommodations for the tenant.
Did you say should? Should be?
Yeah.
I thought it was already.
Yeah,
The
it's,
tenant is
Tenant's
currently
rights.
allowed to withhold rent.
it's
That's
my
the remedy.
understanding that they have to, we went over this section and they had to provide, if they don't meet those standards, then they have to provide that. It's in there. So,
So are you saying they have to provide a remedy and that's not stated, or are you saying that there's gotta be?
I'm
a remedy?
saying that it was my understanding when we went through it yesterday that the remedy as it stands right now is limited to a tenant's withholding of rent.
what? So in the tenant's rights, they are required to provide that to someone. If they don't meet the dwelling standards, we did talk about that yesterday.
Current tenant's rights, a tenant has the right to recover damages, obtain injunctive relief, recover legal fees.
Right, so if they had to go and if they had to fix the problem, the malfunction, then they get all of that paid back. I don't know that putting more obligation on the landlord is actually going to achieve what we want to do. I think that it's better right now to say, if the landlord didn't fix it and you had to, you get paid back for that. Because then it actually gets fixed. I'm trying to understand, because the landlord could still not fix it, even if we say that there's a law that says that you have to. Like, we're saying the place has to be habitable and safe. That is the law. Do I have that? Like,
Yeah,
right? I mean, I just want to make sure
Yes,
that,
yes.
right, so right now the law says that you have to have that that the place has to be habitable and safe.
and there's
The rem-
criteria for
And,
that.
it's criteria, and then we say, if you have to fix it yourself because the landlord has not,
Right,
the landlord must pay you back for that.
yeah.
And so I feel like we're doing what you want to achieve.
I don't agree. I think that, for example, pipes burst
Yeah,
and a tenant's apartment is flooded. Not all of the apartments in a building, but a tenant's apartment is flooded.
yeah.
As it is right now, the landlord is not obligated to provide alternative accommodations. Why on earth would it be incumbent upon the tenant to fix that and then
It's
bill
not,
back?
it's not incumbent, they're
Not
saying they
incumbent.
can
Yes,
and get
they could
reimbursed.
but your
also
argument
pay
is.
for a hotel, and that would also
Also
be
be
reimbursed.
So I guess at this point with that,
I think the landlord would have to pay for.
they do,
The hotel.
they would.
Yeah,
They
that-
do.
That's, if they're,
Elizabeth,
I
I
think she wants it more specific in there.
So then
That's-
what I would do if I were you, Elizabeth, with that piece is I would have asked legislative council to write something that would be different language for that, to be more specific at this point. Otherwise, we can't change it if we don't have the language. And right now, there's kind of we have a different interpretation of it, so we can't know what the language would be if you don't share it with us.
The other one was I just I do still feel that I don't agree with limiting a deposit to be first, last, and deposit. I think it should be first plus deposit, plus 1 month of deposit.
Okay. Well, I think the committee had made that decision about that piece. I I appreciate it. Absolutely. Debbie?
I mean, I can just say from experience is that when you have first, last, and security, that when somebody, you know, gives notice, they're gonna be moving. That they use that last as their last month's rent. They've had their first, they use that as their last month's rent, so they're not paying rent again that last month. And then we have the security deposit for,
Yeah.
to go towards damages.
No, I think we spent a fair amount of time on this part and we did already make a compromise in this section. So,
Limiting it to one extra.
right. Do you remember we did that?
Yep, and I'm just saying on the record that I still strongly object to that. I don't
Totally.
really understand why, if that's the case, then why do you? It goes both ways, like why do you need the last month's rent if the tenants,
Well, that's, a decision that, but I understand that.
it's already the obligation of the tenant, why does the tenant have to pay the last month rent in advance?
Okay. Well, I appreciate, we don't have witnesses to ask questions like that, so we're not gonna just ask the committee member or if you're just asking in general, like I understand that, but
Well,
not directed at.
when they prepay.
Unless you want to answer that.
I mean, I'm just looking at when they prepay that last month, let's just say it's $500, your rent's 500. So that last month, you're not paying 500, but you have 500 to put towards your new place, first month's rent.
No, I understand. Okay, well, I understand that there are folks in the room who still have heavy issues with the bill. And we may not hammer everything out for everyone, but if there's language you need to get to Cameron, it has to be during lunch. Because we can't rewrite the bill on our own, so. As mentioned, if there's things that you need to get to Cameron, then I would do that so that the committee can look at it and we can vote a clean copy this afternoon, which is what we have to do. All right, and with that, I hope everyone has a good lunch and we'll be back at 1:00.